Hello everyone, welcome to SwitchUp. In today's video we're going to have a look at the games that we reviewed on the channel last month, that month being May, going down from the game that got the lowest score up until the one with the highest, of course.
Absolutely. As always, if you want to support us and save a bit of money, you can get your eShop credit over at switchup.gg, where you'll earn SwitchUp coins, very similar to the Nintendo Gold coins, and it doesn't stop you getting those as well. What are the highest rated games of last month, which has to be said was a leaner month because of Tears of the Kingdom? Well, let's find out.
Okay, so just the 6 games to go through this month, or for last month, and in 6th place we had Warhammer 40,000 Boltgun.
Yeah, the Warhammer series seems to be constantly expanded at the moment, and they're almost moving into every genre. Boltgun was a very unexpected twist on their current formula, which has been to use turn-based strategy for their titles. Now, Boltgun describes itself as a boomer shooter, and I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, on Switch it had a few issues. Chiefly for me, and you know what I'm going to say. What am I going to say, Glenn?
Would it be performance?
It would be performance, but that's not actually what I was going to say.
Oh, okay, go on then. What are
it
you
would
gonna say?
actually be that it doesn't have gyro.
Ah, yes, your other bugbear when it comes to first person.
The two bugbears in my life. No, not having gyro in a first-person shooter on Switch is a sin. It has to be said. But regardless, performance was better than I thought it would be. Runs at 30 FPS, almost 95% of the time. And yeah, it was the same as you. I was thinking, wow, okay, it's running well. And then I noticed just something wasn't quite right. And it was as if I had my fingers in my ears.
Right, okay.
It had no ambient sounds. In fact, a lot of the weapon sounds were missing as well.
Right, that is very odd, isn't it?
Really strange.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we had an early build on Steam, which I was playing through, and I was like, man, it was like an acoustic treat.
Yeah.
And then this one, it was just weird, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And I put them side by side, and I was like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
There's no sounds for half the guns.
So odd they would release without that.
Really odd. And even more odd, obviously, then it got 70%.
Yeah.
And I think sound got something like 6 or 7. And then 2 days later, the patch comes out, and lo and behold, it fixes the audio.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, by the time you're watching this, you should have seen our most recent Interesting Games video where we do have this discussion about patches and whether the way that they have changed the industry is good or bad. So maybe that's one to give a watch if you haven't. But I suppose at least it is fixed now. So that was something to factor in if you're looking at the score we're about to announce. But before that, obviously, it did get a SwitchUp score of 70%. In 5th place then, we had our most recent review as it stands at the moment, and that is Cassette Beasts.
Yeah, it's another one that is in the vein of Pokemon, I guess you could say. It's an 80s inspired one that pays homage to, well, awesome technology that we had back then, like cassette tapes, and you almost save them and you create new cassettes, you record new cassettes with these monsters on, and then you spawn them from those. Yeah, this is supposedly, according to Asdin who reviewed it for us, a brilliant game, but guess what?
Is it going to, well, it can't be gyro this time, so it's going to be performance, isn't it?
It's bloody performance, Glen.
Dear.
Yeah, the performance on the Switch version when he initially reviewed it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, it was crashing multiple times a session. It was in a terrible state. Now, in its defense, it has already released one patch that has gone some ways to improve the crashing issues and some of the stutters, but it's still not, I would class as something I would want to release in this state, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, to be fair, just to say that the patch it received was a day one patch. So people buying it and not receiving an early code would never have even known the difference, but it's still just not quite there, is it?
No.
It does have some lovely mechanics though, from what I've seen. Definitely the idea of using the different elements against your enemies to change their elemental state. I don't think I've seen that in one of these games before.
No. He said it's quite game changing in that regard for this genre. Like I say, he really enjoyed those mechanics.
Yeah.
And I must say, anything 80s, where you got a bit of synthwave going on in the background.
Sure. Yeah. Hopefully this is one that will appear in a all-patched episode at some point with good news, but as it stands at the minute, it got a SwitchUp score of 72%. Okay, in 4th place for the month then we had Man of Medan. Now this is one of the Dark Pictures anthology games that I've played through on the PS4, and I was very happy to see this release on the Switch. It was a stealth drop, I seem to remember, but the fact that it wasn't a cloud version was also very pleasing.
Yeah, quite unexpected. Honestly, like you say, it didn't run very well, like you said, I should say. It didn't run very well when it was on other platforms, right? It was quite slow on PS4.
On PS4, it really struggled at times, certainly when it first released, yeah.
So what they've gone for here is to go for that filmic quality. I'm going with filmic, it feels right, of 24 frames per second. And I know there was someone in the comments, oh, you can't have 24 frames per second, it'd be okay. In a game like this, where you haven't got to do twitch reflexes, and most of it is watching actors on screen,
Yep.
it's quite literally like watching a film.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very cinematic in that respect. And yeah, if you're ever going to have a frame rate that dips below 30 consistently, I suppose this is the game to do it in, isn't it?
How does the structure of this one work then?
So basically, this is a mystery game with a horror element to it. It follows a group of friends that end up on an abandoned ship, a ghost ship if you like, and they need to try and get their way off of it. Now, it's one of those games very similar to things like Until Dawn. It had some of the same team behind it, where every decision you make will have an impact on the characters, and your characters can die. So obviously there's scope there for replayability in terms of trying to get, the perfect ending, trying to get everyone out alive. It's a very good adventure. It's an interesting story. Obviously the score was affected by some of the issues we've mentioned in terms of performance and visuals, but on the whole, it's nice to see this game come across, in such a good state, bearing in mind how it looked elsewhere when it first released.
Do you mean on the hull?
I knew you had a joke lined up. Because as I was talking, you had that little smirk about you. Very droll, very droll. Yeah, this got a score of 73%.
In third place for the month then was a game called Afterimage, which I reviewed on the channel. It really did remind me of Hollow Knight in the best possible way. You had very fast dual blades, you had different weapons like scythes that you could use, and each of them could be leveled up independently. The world was absolutely stunning. Well, at least in my opinion, I think it looks beautiful. I think the issue that a lot of people had with this one was the storyline. Now, the story is very confusing. Let's be honest, it's something we could say about some of the best games ever, things like Dark Souls. Their narratives are full of things that we might never understand, but the overall flavour and feeling of the game remains the same. It was a testament to just how responsive the controls were. I loved how you got different abilities, the fast travel system. It was a testament to all of those things, the high score it received, despite that storyline not being the greatest. If you're a fan of Metroidvanias and Souls-likes, this one gives you full and free access to its entire world, straight from the get-go, which can be a bit punishing if you venture off into those darker crevices. A really good game.
You'll see the bump in scores for this top 3 because this one came in with a score of 83%.
In number 2 then, we've got FUGA 2, Melodies of Steel. Now, I kind of knew that this review would tank because the first game was a bit of a hidden gem. I remember releasing it and it had like 5k views for about a month. And as people got onto the game, it started to blow up a bit, especially when it went on sale. This is brilliant. It has elements of games like Advance Wars. It has an unusual, almost sim-life aspect where you're moving along on this tank, but there are intermissions where inside the tank you're building relationships with the children on board. And the characters are children. It kind of tries to tell the story almost of children within a war conflict, or the first game did. And then the sequel, it builds on that a little bit, except obviously I don't want to spoil the narrative. It turns into a bit of a rescue mission. Now, it keeps a lot of those same mechanics. So you have the Advanced War style combat segment, and in that combat, your tank has 3 different levels of cannon and 3 different types of cannon, and the different children can use different weapons, and different enemies have different weaknesses. You know how this is going.
Yeah.
But it's very intricately designed, and I love the fact that building those sim life aspects then meant that you could improve your skills when you were using them, when in those battles.
With this one, if you've played the first one, is this one different enough to warrant a purchase, or are they too similar?
It's one of those where, you could say the same kind of argument for the whole Breath of the Wild thing.
Yeah.
They're very similar, but the first one was very, very good. And I think the thing it did best was telling a story in that way. This one's no different, like in terms of mechanics, very similar. It does, I have to say, remove one of the most annoying mechanics. There was a mechanic called the Soul Cannon where you could put one of the children into the cannon and it would definitely kill the enemy, but it would kill the child.
Oh man, okay.
Yeah, they've changed that.
Wow.
Now the child just gets knocked out.
Okay. Well, that's that's good to hear me. Okay. Second for the month then, with a SwitchUp score of 87%. And in first place for the month, probably, well, most certainly no surprise, I'm sure, almost made this video feel superfluous in terms of what was going to come top, but it is, of course, Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
That was a surprise to me.
I nearly said Breath of the Wild, so it was a surprise to me as well. Whoops.
As we know with Tears of the Kingdom by now, everyone and their nan's playing it. She's loving it.
She does, yeah, really enjoys it.
She can't get enough of it. I was actually watching a video earlier on the, again on the physics. There's a lot of programmers who are looking at this just dumbfounded.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've played any like janky physics games in the past. Things like Garry's Mod, which are amazing. Like it's a Valve based on the Valve engine on Steam. It's like a sandbox where you're building physical objects, and you'd have seen it with Havoc physics in the past, where you make something and it flies off into the sky. You might have even had it in a game where something just janks out.
Yeah.
Here, like there's this one shrine, and it's got like this bridge that's all attached in sections like this, and it's like laid on the floor as you'd expect. And he builds this little like a block in the middle, 2 large wheels, attaches it to the front of the bridge, then he hits the wheel, and obviously with their system it pulls that bridge through this lava up the other side, and then it straightens exactly as you would expect. That's almost impossible to code. So I love it. Like, I know that's nothing to do with the overall game, but it's just one element of how quality it is.
Yeah, and it's a very because it's so intricate, it's so integral, but yet it's so intricate and almost underplayed in terms of it just becomes second nature, that you almost forget how difficult that would have been to implement, you know?
You really would have. And even, regardless of that, the fact that they've tried their best to redo dungeons in a more authentic way, like you said, there was a sword reward at the end of it and things like that.
Yeah, you got your extra heart container and stuff. It did feel a bit more old school Zelda on that front, didn't it? Obviously the world's bigger. I felt it just felt a bit more lived in. We said that in our review anyway, but just in terms of like seeing horse and carriages going across the land, out of the way, and finding NPCs fighting an enemy and you can go and help them. Just these little touches really did make it feel more alive.
You're absolutely right. I think that's probably actually one of its less spoken about best features, is how much more purpose the NPCs seem to have within the world.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, it obviously scored our highest ever score of all time, which was 96%. And if you want to go check out that review, we'll pop a link to it in the description.
Absolutely. So there you have it. There's a month of Nintendo Switch reviews on SwitchUp. As we said, not as many reviews this month. We really wanted to give Tears of the Kingdom a good chunk of time, so that halted our productivity elsewhere, I'm afraid, but hopefully we'll have a few more reviews for you in the coming month.
Brilliant. And you heard one of the best hole-based jokes you've ever heard.
It was very good, very good. So good I didn't even know how to respond to it. Just moved on quickly. Don't forget, if you are looking for eShop credit, as Mark said at the beginning, you can use our website, switchup.gg. You can get your eShop cards on there. You'll earn yourself SwitchUp tokens. You can then redeem these obviously later against future purchases, and you'll still get your eShop coins when you download your card onto the eShop. There's also a link down there to Play Asia. If you're looking to import any games, use the link, use the code, and you get yourself 5% off of your order. A quick thank you to our patrons and our channel members, of course, for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.